Okay, well, I think we're being live streamed now, so probably a good time to get started. Hello, everyone. My name's Viola. I'm going to be helping moderate this talk, which I think is going to be very exciting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Flora, for joining us. I'm sure everyone's really excited to hear about everything that you have to say. Just if you have any questions throughout the talk, I think the best way to do it is just stick it in the chat. Same if you're watching the live stream. Yeah, send your questions to the chat and I can flag them to Laura as she goes or take them at the end, whatever's easiest. But yeah, you all came here to hear from Laura, so I think I'll pass on and let her give an introduction to the talk and what she's going to be presenting about. So
thank you, Viola, and thank you, Ollie, as well from the Her International Film Festival for inviting me to have a chat with you today about smartphone filmmaking. So give me 1 second, I'm going to share my screen. And don't worry, it's not death by PowerPoint. It's more for me to keep track and not go completely off tangent and keep within the time. So give me 1 second, I'm going to share my screen now. Is it playing okay? If you want to give me a thumbs up there. Yeah,
you're all good.
Great stuff. So again, thank you so much for having me this afternoon. So I know some of you in the room, so some of you know me, but for those who don't know me, I'm the creative producer and engagement officer for the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland, also known as PRONI. And I've been working with PRONI and another institution called the Nerve Center on a project called Making the Future, which again, some of you know because you're past participants. And for those who don't know, you will know everything about it today. So this is just a little bit about my background, just to show you a little bit how I got to smartphone filmmaking. My background is in multimedia content creation and education. I've been around for the past 10, 15 years, actually 15 now. And throughout my whole career, I have been a very strong believer that anyone can and should tell their stories. And I'm very passionate about filmmaking. And I think films are a great way of telling stories. And everyone should give it a go, even if you don't want to be a filmmaker per se. The way I like working with people is in a very collaborative, participatory way. And Making the Future is no different. And alongside Making the Future, I also work, I also run a film festival called the Rathmullen Film Festival, which takes place in Donegal every February. And we've been around for the past 4 years. Next year is going to be our 5th edition. So to name, because we started preparations for it. But let me tell you about Making the Future, because this is why I'm here today. So for those of you who don't know what Making the Future is it's a big cross-border, cross-community cultural program that has been around Northern Ireland and the border counties. Unfortunately, Kerry is a little bit further from the border, so Kerry is not an area we would be working with. But it's been around since 2018, and sadly, it's coming to an end next month because our funding is over. We spent all the money. It has 4 partners, PRONI being one of them. It's led by the Nerve Center, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Nerve Center as well. And it also has the Linehan Library, which is the oldest library in Belfast, and the National Museums and I as partners. And basically what Making the Future has been doing for the past 3.5 years is getting people to engage with museum and archive collections, get them to think about the past, think about the present, but also think about the future. It is supported by a very healthy budget from the European Union under a program called Peace program. Peace funding has been around in Northern Ireland since I think the early 1990s. And of course, because of Brexit, is a very important pot of money that will disappear. There is only, I think, one last round of funding starting in 2023. But after that, good luck to Northern Ireland, because there will be no more peace money here. And it's been absolutely wonderful for all the 4 partners involved, because it has enabled participants from a wide range of backgrounds to get their voices heard, to be creative, and also to learn a couple of skills. So for the projects I'm going to be telling a little bit about today, we focus on smartphone filmmaking as the skills building opportunity for the participants. So Making the Future, you see the budget was quite a generous one. So it's a massive project, and it has 9 different strands of work, basically themes that that the partner institutions are responsible for. A couple of the themes. So Prony, we were responsible for 100 shared stories and the women in the archives strands, and all our projects were delivered under either one or the other strand. So for those of you who don't know Prony is the official archives for Northern Ireland. It was established, of course, after the island of Ireland was partitioned into 2 different states. It has both private and official records, so it's not just government boring documents. There is actually an amazing collection of private stuff, from diaries, photographs, to scrapbooks, you name it. It's absolutely amazing. Most of our collection would date back from the 1600s up to the present day, but we have some documents that will be a little bit older. It's mostly paper-based, but for the past 10 to 15 years, Prony has started collecting audiovisual material as well, and films being one of them. This is our building. If you haven't been to Prony, I know some of you have, some of you haven't. We're located at that tiny quarter in Belfast, and it's a purpose-built building. So this is the exterior, and this is a picture of our foyer. So for those of you who don't know the Nerve Centre, as I said, Nerve Centre are leading the project, and I work with both the Nerve Centre and Prony. I'm actually hired by the Nerve Centre to run the creative projects for Prony, if that makes sense. The Nerve Centre has been around since the early 90s, and it is the leading creative media centre. It's home to a lot of projects, Making the Future just being one of them. There is another amazing project called Reimagine, Remake, Replay, which is a partnership between the Nerve Centre and the museums. But they also have a creative learning centre, so they work a lot with schools in creative projects with schools. And they're also home to the Foyle Film Festival, which is one of the leading festivals here in Northern Ireland. And again, this is a picture of the exterior of the Nerve Centre. Not as good looking as Prony, but again, once you go in, it's absolutely amazing, the facilities that they have and the different things that you can do in Nerve. So these are the 2 institutions. So they're together, they were responsible for the projects I'm going to be showing you today. But before we get to smartphone filmmaking, I just want to tell a little bit more about the different things that Prony and the Nerve Centre did together for Making the Future. So as I said, Prony was in charge of 2 strands, and we delivered for both strands 30 engagement, well, actually 29. We have our next one starting next week, 29 engagement program with participants from all ages, all backgrounds. And each program generally would focus on a particular topic, and it would also focus on a particular sort of like skills building opportunity for participants. So this slide just gives you just like a very basic sort of like snapshot of the different projects we did before venturing into the world of smartphone filmmaking. So we ran a couple of filmmaking programs. The 2 pictures in the middle, the top one was actually a virtual reality filmmaking program. So this was our first time experimenting with 360 degree cameras. And the picture down below was a project we did with a group of women in South Armagh, and it was an iPad filmmaking program, and we got them to make 5 short films about being a woman in South Armagh. And the results are fantastic, and they're all available online as well. The one at the left was another filmmaking program we did with kids. Actually, that one was after the lockdown. And all the other slides, all the other pictures are from pre-lockdown. But we also, filmmaking was just one of the creative things we did with people. We also, the picture on the top left was a program called Buried in Belfast. We worked with a group of people to get them to come to Prony to do some research into 2 cemetery sites here in Belfast called the Belfast City Cemetery and Milltown Cemetery. And together we created a walking trail of women's graves on both places. And that trail is available both in print, but also through an app called Easy Travel. And then the 2 pictures on my right, maybe it's on your left, I don't know, but it's on my right, are the one at the top is of a podcast making program we did with a group of senior ladies in North Belfast, where we got them to share their experience of living in North Belfast and what it's like being a woman. And then the one down below was a photo merger project we did in County Fermanagh in Enniskillen with a group of people who were really into photography. And we got them to create sort of like, you know, those before and after photographs of Enniskillen based using old photographs from our archives. So just give you a very brief snapshot of the many different things. As I said, there were 29 projects. I could be here all day describing each of them because they were all amazing and very unique and very different. For example, Siobhan, who is here in the room with us, she took part in a time capsule making project with her group in Portadown. And we also did that with the Nerve Center. And Liz, who's also here in the room, she took part in a pilot project, which was very much about visiting different sites across Northern Ireland. And then they helped us create an exhibition for Prony called In Her Words. And Liz was also the person behind another project we did during the lockdown called Textile Stories, which was very much looking at archives and fashion history. And we created a photo embroidery exhibition with the participants. So again, just showing like a wide range of things. We love anything that is creative. And of course, smartphone filmmaking was no different. It was something that I have to confess, I had absolutely no experience of, no knowledge of. It was only 3 weeks ago that I actually bought a proper phone, because up until then I had like the cheapest phone because I'm worse than a child. I drop my phone every 5 seconds, so I can't be trusted with a proper iPhone. But I finally surrendered to the world of iPhones, and I have to say I should have done it earlier. But smartphone filmmaking was something that, as I said, I wasn't very familiar with, hadn't a clue about equipment or what you could do with a smartphone. It is something that before the lockdown, for Making the Future, whenever we did filmmaking programs, we would do either iPad filmmaking programs or using DSLR proper cameras, but never smartphones. And it was something that I had because of my work with the film festival in Rathmullen. We would have had smartphone filmmaking workshops for the festival, but it wasn't something that I brought into Making the Future. But of course, as we all know, the lockdown came in March. We were all stuck at home. We didn't have access to our office, our equipment, to absolutely nothing. And Making the Future had to continue because we had the funding. We could have just stopped and wait for the world to get back to normal. So we had a couple of filmmaking projects sort of like planned for the summer, particularly with kids whenever they're out of school. And of course, because we couldn't bring them into Prony or into the Nerve Center to do this workshop. So we're like, oh, okay, so how do we actually run a workshop when everyone is stuck at home, including us? So smartphone filmmaking was the route to go. And I think what was really important whenever we started thinking of the different smartphone filmmaking projects we could do during lockdown was the relationships that I had already established with Camilla Megan and Kieran Kelly from Pocket Productions, which is a smartphone filmmaking training company based in Donegal, and Rob Fitzhugh from the Dublin Smartphone Film Festival. So I had worked with them before for the festival, and it was great to bring them into Making the Future and get them to work with us in designing the programs and facilitating the smartphone filmmaking programs. So all the projects I'm going to show you now, except for one, we worked with either Rob or Camille and Kieran. So, but before that, I just want to show you two films. One I came across through Rob's festival, the Dublin Smartphone Film Festival. The other one I think was I came across I think at the Still Voices Short Film Festival. I think both films show very well how amazing the world of smartphone filmmaking is and how much can be done on your phone. So let's start first with The Reef, which was a film shot entirely on an iPhone underwater. So, and it was commissioned by Apple. So give me 1 second. I'm going to try to share my screen. Tell me if the audio is working okay. If not, I'll just reshare it again. So just bear with me 1 second. And again, if it doesn't work, I'll just do it again. I'll just play the first minute, but this film is available on YouTube and you can easily find it. So
You're all good with sound.
Yeah. I'll play the first minute. I'll stop here. So this is just to give a flavor of what you can actually do with smartphones now, which for me, when I saw that film during Rob's film festival, I just couldn't believe that you could actually shoot an entire film underwater using a smartphone, and the image quality is absolutely as good as it would be with a proper massive equipment. Of course, that this film wasn't made, if you want to try to make a film underwater with your phone, it's probably not going to turn out as amazing as this one. They had the proper gear, very expensive gear to shoot underwater, to protect the phone, and then probably a lot of work went into post-production as well to make it look as amazing as it looks. By contrast, I want to show you another one that it shows that, well, actually, you don't need a big budget or all the latest fancy equipment to make a very powerful piece. This one, unfortunately, I couldn't find the full film on online. I think it's still playing at film festivals. It's called At Night I Dream, and I think was made by a filmmaker based in Luxembourg. It was shot entirely on a nursing home. I think it's in Luxembourg as well, the nursing home, or maybe somewhere in France. And was mostly shot inside that elevator. And it's mostly just, as you can see, there's only like a 20-second clip I could find for the film, but all you're gonna see is the filmmaker holding with a mount and holding her phone and using a mic to capture the sound, and that was it. It was just her interviews with the residents of that nursing home, and then that's it. So I'm gonna try to play the only 20-second clip that I could find, but if you can try to mail the filmmaker and ask to see the film, I would tell you it was actually for me the highlight of that film festival, and a very, very simple thing to do and very powerful. So again, let me know if it plays okay, and it's only 20 seconds, so you blink and you miss it. And I'll play as well. There are two, I'm gonna play also after that, audience feedback, because that's how I got the 20 seconds, just to show a bit of like the power of those stories in an audience.
Votre petite fille, elle vient tous les samedis maintenant.
Et elle vient tous les samedis.
C'est super ça. Oui. Eh oui, Madame Pierrat, oui. On a des surprises parfois.
I really enjoyed this one. What a brilliant premise. Obviously, at least right off the bat, one of the residents didn't think so. So I thought that really set the tone here. And there were a lot of laughs. There's some really cute moments. There's some really endearing moments too. And it's all captured really well here. It's playful, it's thoughtful, it's very sweet. It's absolutely worth checking out.
And what a smart idea for a film. It's set in an elevator in a senior's home, and you get to see all sorts of people who live there come and go in the elevator, and you really see a broad range of personalities. Some of them are quite sad and introspective and lonely, you can tell. One woman lost her husband a year ago, but others are charming and funny and just want to see the bright side of everything, and they really like living there. They like dealing with the hairstylist. They like flirting with the staff. There's a real bond between the staff and the clients, and it's really a joy to see, and you really feel like you get to know the people throughout the film.
So yeah, and I'm very sorry, I really tried to find to show it a little bit more of the film, but it was impossible. But again, what I think both films show you are the possibilities of smartphone filmmaking. You know, if you have lots of different types of equipment, you can make something as impressive as The Reef, but you don't need much if you have a very good story, and you can make a very, very powerful piece with very, very little, and with very, very little money as well. None of the equipment that she was using would cost more than a couple of pounds or £100. So it's not that you are spending all your money on equipment. So again, just giving you a little flavor of two very, very different types of smartphone filmmaking projects. I want to move now to the ones that we did as part of Making the Future, to give a little flavor of how we worked with people during the lockdown. So all the projects were delivered during the lockdown, except for one that we were able to work with people half over Zoom and half in person, but everything else was 100% over Zoom with people at home. So as I said, we generally like doing filmmaking programs with kids during the school, not just filmmaking, programs with kids during their school break, to give them something really, really cheerful and creative to do, and as a way of bringing them into our archives, even if that means that we have to do that virtually. So at the first lockdown, so the summer of 2020, we did our first smartphone filmmaking program called YouTubers. We couldn't come up with a better, more creative name. That was as best as we could do. And then this summer past, we did another program again with young filmmakers called TikTokers. So first program, we were looking at YouTube filmmaking. The second program, we were looking at TikTok filmmaking. And both programs, they worked the very same way. They were like week-long programs. So every day for 3 hours each day, the kids were with us on Zoom. And we also use another platform called Slack, which works very much as a private chat room. And we use Slack as the tool for the kids to upload their work, but also as a chat, as a place where they could chat with each other between the Zoom sessions as well. So for both programs, what we did was we set a couple of tasks for the kids to do to create different video using different styles that are used for YouTube filmmaking and in TikTok. And both programs were led by Rob from the Dublin Smartphone Film Festival. So he did all the workshops for us. And for the YouTube filmmaking program, we also brought in a YouTuber called John D. Ruddy. He's based in Donegal. His channel has like millions of visualizations. We got him to give the kids a masterclass on YouTube filmmaking and inspiring them to set up their own channels. So the YouTube filmmaking program focused on getting the kids to engage with our archives, particularly with videos that we have from an archive called the UTV archive, and get them to think about gender issues and create responses to those issues that would have been addressed in the archival clips. And for the TikTok filmmaking program, we got them to engage with material that we had, not necessarily audiovisual, but different types of material we had in relation to old professions that no longer exist. And for the TikTok filmmaking program, we got the kids to make films sort of like comparing the old professions and with, you know, what the equivalent would be now, or if they no longer exist, to bring them to life through TikTok, sort of like a short TikTok video. So so I'm going to show you, I'm going to play some clips from both programs. So let's start with the YouTube filmmaking program to give a little flavor of what the kids produce. So as I said, each day we would set sort of like a task. So for the YouTube filmmaking program, so one day was about reacting to the archives that they would have seen. The second day was about sort of like repurposing the archive and using silent clips and creating like a voiceover narration that goes on top of it and reimagining completely what. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to put some clips from both programs. So let's start with the YouTube filmmaking program. A little flavor of what the kids produce. So as I said,
I think someone's unmuted and there's causing a bit of an echo. There we go. Thanks.
Thank you. I was like, I don't like hearing the sound of my voice. I don't want to hear it twice. Okay, so I'll play the video then. Much better than hearing my own voice. Give me 1 second and I'm going to try to get. So as I said, I'm going to start by showing you, oh, what did I do with it? I'm going to start by showing you the clips that we did that the kids produced for the YouTube filmmaking program. So give me 1 second and I'm going to play it here. And again, if you can give me a thumbs up to let me know if it's playing. So the first thing you're going to see is just some of the clips that they would have engaged with from our archives and their reactions to the gender stuff that they were seeing. We deliberately selected really, really sexist clips. And it was great to see their reactions to that. And then you're going to see some of the videos that they would have submitted to Slack as a response to the tasks that we set them. So yeah, if you can give me a thumbs up if audio and everything is playing okay.
Gentlemen, are you worried about hairdressing? Well, you ought to be, because it seems that soon one of the last male preserves may go for a Burton in the opposite sex.
I think she's done a good job for a lady.
I think a lot of young people nowadays feel no association at all with political parties and the issues that they address.
There's still like elements of it today, obviously. It's not as bad as it used to be in like the 50s and 60s and all.
Looking at clips like that from way back shows how far we've kind of come from that. Mm-hmm.
Also shows how far we have to go as well.
Still very sexist, just like the last clips. And then it just got weird, the last one.
It could change a lot more, but it hasn't changed as much as it should.
I'm still blown away by the fact that this stuff would be shown on TV. Not boring. None of them could be called boring.
How do you fancy the prospect of a young lady coming out here? Well, it would be a pleasant change, but don't know.
Anything you'd like to change about yourself, anything you don't like about your body?
My belly and my love handle, definitely. And my arms, I don't really like them either.
Is there anything you do like?
Not that much. I'm not too fussy, but I don't know.
You committed to living in Northern Ireland?
As long as it is Northern Ireland.
Right, I think I understand that.
In Blackstuff Square, someone was putting up a sign that said WOMA. Oh, the Working Women's the Working Women's Square. Then someone signed the thing. Someone spat into a loudspeaker. This woman started talking about how Tato in the North and Tato in the South are two different companies, and how we should not fall for Tato in the North, because Tato in the South are much better. Their crisps supposedly taste a lot better. I do not quite believe that, because onion rings in the South are disgusting in comparison to onion rings in the North. But you know, they're dancing and men are watching in the corner, so they must be doing something right.
Squeezing the bum to make it tighter. Using machines to get rid of fat around the thighs. Women are starting to work out to get their bodies in shape. Here are women doing the doggy paddle with one leg to make their legs longer. They say they do this to get rid of saggy parts.
I suppose you're...
Okay, so this was the YouTube filmmaking program, and as you can see, they were very playful with the archival material, and it was very important in that program that we got them to think about ethically reusing archival content as well. So we had lots of discussions about copyright, about reusing the material, making fun of it, but at the same time not crossing the boundary and sort of like losing respect for the source material. So it was sort of like, it was very interesting to see how they could be very creative, but at the same time, they had to be very, very mindful of being respectful to the source material. I'm just going to show you now one clip from the TikTok filmmaking program. As I said, that one was about bringing old professions to life. And in this one, the participant Demi, she contrasts the old profession with what would be the equivalent today, and she got the help of her little brother to film and to perform in her video. So. Okay, short and sweet, as most TikTok videos are. So again, just two samples of the different things that the participants created for the project. If you go to Making the Future, and if you go to a section called News, you can actually see all their creations as well. So yeah, so I want to move on to the next project, which was also about creatively reusing archival material, but this one was a little bit more serious. They were allowed to be creative and to reuse archival material in their films, but not in a playful way like the kids did with the other two programs. This one was actually delivered in partnership between with two projects. It was the Nerve Center. Prony wasn't involved in this one. It was the Nerve Center with a project called Make Film History, which is a fabulous project led by Kira at the University College Cork and Shane at Kingston University in the UK. And they are working with 4 archival partners, 4 archival institutions from the North, South, and England. And it is about making archives accessible to young filmmakers. and giving them the freedom sort of like to creatively reuse it, but also think about copyright and all those issues as well. And together with the Nerve Center and Make Film History, the film festival in Rathmullen run this program. So it was a partnership between the three, Making the Future, Make Film History, and the film festival. And we worked with a group of young people. Actually, one of them is in the room today. And it was a little bit different from the other smartphone filmmaking program, because this one was a much more intense. We only had 2 weekends, 2 Saturdays, and we got them to make films over, I think it was only 3 weeks. So 1 Saturday workshop, a week where they had to do a bit of work, come back for another Zoom workshop, full day on a Saturday, and then they had like a week or 2 to submit their finished pieces. So it was much more, it was spread across a few more weeks, but it was much more intense. And we focused on working with people around Derry and Donegal. And again, all the engagement was through Zoom. This time we worked with Pocket Productions, and we also had a filmmaker called Tag O'Sullivan, who was absolutely brilliant and gave the participants a lot of inspiration in terms of how you can creatively reuse archival material. And each participant created a short film, and their films premiered at the film festival earlier this year. So I'm going to show you one of the films that was produced for the project. Again, they were all absolutely mind-blowing. Each of the participants went sort of like create a different creative route when reusing or being inspired by the archival material that we gave them access to. But I'm going to show you this one by Pierce, and Pierce's film was very experimental and very, very different from everything that participants I would have worked with in the past would have produced. And it really blew us away. So I'm going to show you his film now. So, and that film actually went on and has been shown at a couple of film festivals as well. So.
These are a battleground where the weapons are the elements themselves.
I'm not going to lose it on dreams, on windmills. I'm alive.
Here, Pontus, primordial god of the sea, moves. A thick, frothing pit, seething with colossal rage, entrapping leviathans and monsters in a prison far below. Here, Pontus moves. Where is the other child of Gaia, descended from chaos and bred from the void? Here Aurea, another god of Mother Earth. She stands proud, regal, and animated. Hear Aurea's silence. Be more, be more, must be more, be there must be more, there must be more, must be more than there must be more than this, there must be more than this. Hero of special courage, strength, and ability. In awe of your divine ancestry, you strive to honor your bloodline.
that was Pierce's film. And again, a lot of the participants would either have shot the film entirely on a smartphone and edit on their smartphones, or shot on a smartphone and edit on their computers. So there was a mix of both. So the last two programs, I have just two more to show you, and I'm going to try to speed it up because I'm conscious of time. The next one is straight after Make Film History, Prony and then Representative came team up again to run another smartphone filmmaking project, and this time was with a group with varying degrees of sight loss. And for that project, again, we had only Zoom sessions with the participants. We actually didn't work with Rob or Camila this time, but we worked with a different facilitator called Connor Scott Gardner, who is a visually impaired YouTuber. And for that program, we focus more on enabling the participants to build confidence to share their stories. And with some of them, they actually and pointed them to the direction of, if you want to try to do everything yourself from filming to editing, this is how you go about doing it. So we didn't focus so much on the technical side of things as we would have with the other, with the previous programs I showed you. So with this one was more like, you know, share your story. We want to hear about your experience of education in Northern Ireland. And there are different ways of making films. So some participants for that project, they did everything from scripting to filming or gathering all their photographs and then editing on a smartphone. Others prefer to just do, for example, Zoom interviews. They send us all their photographs or things that they would have filmed, and then we did the editing from our end. So I'm going to show you one of the films that was produced for as part of the project. And again, you can watch all the 10 films if you go to educationstories.org, but I'm going to show you just one of them. I'm going to show you Stephen Strong's film. Stephen actually was one of the participants who did everything on his smartphone and who learned how to edit from scratch. So I'm going to play it here. So again, if there's any issue, please let me know.
Finnegy Primary School first opened in August 1934. At this time, it was known as Finnegy Public Elementary School. It has nurtured the minds and well-being of young children from the surrounding area since then, acting as a vital part of their development and as a focal point for the local community. My first memories date back to the early 70s, leaving the house and walking down through Wedderburn Park, out through the large green iron gates and on down to Stanton Waite facing the entrance for the smiling face of Mrs. Ferguson, the lollipop lady, to give you the all clear to cross the road. After entering through the gates, you were greeted with rows of cherry blossom trees on both sides of the road leading down to the school. On windy spring days, a blizzard of pink and ivory snow swirled around you as you made your way down towards the brown brick buildings of the original main school. Before reaching the main building, to the left was a gap in the hedge that led to a path. This took you down to the junior classes housed in a cream building constructed from aluminium in the 50s. But to the right, opposite the path, was my favourite part of the school, the swimming pool. Built in the 60s and used by pupils from many schools in the surrounding area, this is where my fondest memories of primary school were formed. Everyone racing around the edge in the same direction, and then with a blast of the whistle, you turned and struggled against the current you had created. Getting proficiency badges for ever-increasing distances and lengths completed. These came in various colours that had to be displayed for all to see. Swimming under the water through plastic hoops to retrieve a heavy black rubber brick. Then, when all the fun was over, you returned to class, clothes sticking to hardly dried skin and hair still dripping. Smelling of chlorine, but feeling warm and happy. Your towel and trunks now stuffed into your drawstring swimming bag with the school logo printed on the side. A choice of colours was available. This now became a weapon to terrorise your friends with, as long as you were out of sight of the teacher. Happy memories that led to my love of the water, a love of being beside, in, and sometimes working many metres below the surface. For me, this all began in the 70s, when I was a pupil at the school with the pool.
So what I love about Stephen's film is that, I'm going to play the credits, how rude of me. What I love about his film is very, very simple photographs, a lovely voiceover narration, good script, all edited on his smartphone using an app called KineMaster, and off he went. Made a very, very powerful film. And same with the other participants as well. We used a lot of Zoom as well to record some of the interviews and just record the audio, again, because that's what they were familiar with. And it worked really well. So the last project I want to bring your attention to, and then I will wrap up, is one called The Female Eye in Donegal, in which we worked with a group of women who would have taken part before they came to our project on a photography project. So they already had sort of like an eye for photography and for cinematography. And smartphone filmmaking was a way of sort of like worked almost like as a follow-up to the different skills that they would have developed through that initial photography project. That one was facilitated by Camila and Kieran at Pocket Productions. And that one was the only one that I said it was hybrid, because we did the project this summer. So we were able to do, initially we were planning to do all the 3 sessions in person, but of course, COVID regulations kept, changing. And initially we couldn't bring them into the room to work together in the same room. So we had to do the first 2 sessions, very intense, like the Make Film History project. And then we brought them into the Nerve Center in Derry for our last and third editing session face-to-face. So at the end of the project, each participant made a 1-minute film about different issues that are important to them. So we have anything from family, farming to domestic violence as well. And they were absolutely fantastic, because making a film is very hard, but making a 1-minute film is even harder. And they didn't have much time. And again, like with the other participants of the other projects, they all we're up to the challenge and really exceeded our expectations. I'm just going to play, they're all available, again, if you go to makingthefuture.eu/news, and if you look for the Female Eye Donegal, you're going to find, all the films, they're up there. I'm just going to play 2 very quickly, and then I will wrap up. So the first one I want to play is the one that Maud made about her mother.
My Uncle George, he had a car. I suppose Daddy had a car at that time, and we all piled in. And of course, you took your kettle and your sandwiches or whatever you had with you. And then you filled your kettle with water, and you got there and you lit your fire, put a few stones around, and we must have sent to gather sticks. They got the fire lit to boil the kettle. And the woman, they had all their scones with them, or bread. And maybe they buttered them as you wanted them. And then they're all their homemade butters, that we made at home. There was no such thing as bought creamery butter in those days.
So very simple interview with her mother. And she actually used the project as an opportunity to experiment with interviewing people and making them feel comfortable, asking the questions and getting as much out of the interviewees as possible. And so that 1 minute was her experimentation, and she wants to do a much bigger piece. By contrast, I want to show Sherry's film about the beach, and I'll tell you a little story about it as well. So,
I am the beach, precious and ever-changing, flanked by sea and dunes. I love to hear you laugh and play, building sandcastles, walking, resting, de-stressing. I love my beach friends of Rasnile, especially Laura and Claire, who clean my back every day. Why do you do it, I ask them. Laura cares to protect the beach creatures and marine life. Claire has pride of place. She likes to enable my wild nature. I know you all like coming to the beach. I have a wish for you. Leave no trace. When you leave the beach, take everything you bring to the beach away with you. Be here. Love here. To see change, be change. Love the beach.
So for Sherry's film, initially she wanted to have the poem and the interview she did with the 2 ladies who cleaned the beach. And when she saw that she only had a minute for the film, she was like, oh, I can't fit everything into 1 minute. And again, she decided, you know what, I'm going to leave the interview out and incorporate some of their answers into my voiceover narration. Very simple, photographs, images, voiceover narration, all shot on a phone and edited on her phone. So wrapping up, sorry, I think I went a little bit over time. I wanted to leave more time for discussions, but I'm going to try to wrap up very, very quickly. So just to wrap up, I think that if the story is good, people will watch it no matter how professional it looks or not. Of course, that the more technology, the more money, the better looking your film will be. But at the same time, I think hopefully with all the projects that would have shown, they were made by the participants on sort of like on a zero budget. We didn't give them any money to produce their films. And this shows that a lot can be done if you have a very good story. There is a lot out there that is affordable, and there are lots of things that you also can create yourself. So check YouTube. There are lots of different tutorials. If you don't have money to buy a proper tripod, you can actually create tripods at home using whatever equipment or whatever objects you have at home. And I would also say, if you want to give smartphone filmmaking a go, I would say experiment with what you have first before spending any money. Because again, you might be surprised by how much you can get out of doing things yourself without having to spend a fortune. So just some final tips to wrap up. Some of the things I really learned from Rob and Camilla and Kieran is the first thing is know your phone. You won't believe how much your phone can do unless you start like really, really looking into the settings and saying what's available out there. If you're making films using your smartphones, try to keep it short because it's very hard to edit on a phone. And also you might not have enough storage space to have, let's say, a 1 hour film in your phone. Plan as much as possible. Planning is key, and you're gonna see how easy your filming and then your editing is gonna be if you have everything well planned. Of course, this is not if you're doing a film following a style called cinema verite, which is very much like a man with a movie camera, and then you don't know what's going to be until you start filming. But if you know the story well and if you know the style you want to go with, yes, planning is key. So know your surroundings, and that's particularly important when you're capturing audio. And in the workshops that POCA and the Dublin Smartphone Film Festival would do for us, it's great because they give you lots of tips, which rooms in your house are better for recording an interview, places to avoid, and different techniques that you can use to capture the best audio or the best image as possible. There are lots of tutorials out there about composition, framing, camera movement, and seriously, you could get caught in a rabbit hole on YouTube, but there is a lot out there and they're all brilliant. But I would also strongly encourage you to attend. If you ever see POCA or if you ever see Rob doing any courses, they're not paying me to say this, by the way, but I would strongly consider you to do their courses because they're absolutely brilliant. They really make the whole technology less scary if you're doing that for the first time. And there are lots available out there as well. There is affordable or that it's free. So for example, for filming, a lot of filmmakers would use an app called Filmic Pro, which gives you a little bit more control of your camera, more than the native camera app that comes with every phone. Editing, same thing as well. You have iMovie that comes with any iPhone. You have KineMaster and VN, which are both free editing software, and they're both sort of like very straightforward and very user-friendly. And sound, you have a sound editor app called Lexis, which is also very good, and it's also free as well. And of course, if you pay for the paid version, you get much more out of it. And I would also say attend film festivals. It's amazing how much inspiration you can get for your own films by just watching what other people are doing. So to finish off, I think, and hopefully this talk has shown you that access to technology or knowledge of technology is not really the real challenge. The real challenge really, well, at least I believe so, is actually having a great story to tell, because you can have all the fancy equipment, but if your story is crap, nobody will engage with it. Whereas the other way around it, if your story is amazing, people are not going to be going like, oh my God, look at that. It's a little bit, the lighting is not, perfect. So people will be so immersed in the story that they will even forget if you use a camera, if you use a phone, and any technical issues. This is my handle. I'm on Twitter, and this is also Making the Future if you want to see what we're up to. Yes, so thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't rumble too much. Oh,
Laura, that was fantastic. Thank you. I really enjoyed that last one, I Am the Beach. I'm pretty sure that was Rosnella Beach, and that's where I went every summer growing up. So it was a nice surprise to see. I've written down a couple of questions for you as you were presenting there. It was really, really incredible how you started out with smartphone filmmaking over COVID, and how it must have been a very difficult learning to adapt with all that. And so well done. I applaud you for it. I was wondering what kind of your plans are for the future. And do you want to stick with smartphone filmmaking and continue running courses for young people and things like that, or what your goals are and what you hope to see?
Yeah, I think speaking from a film festival perspective, definitely, I think every year we are going the smartphone filmmaking route when running workshops, especially with young people. For Making the Future, well, Making the Future is unfortunately finishing next month, but Prony and the Nerve Center, they have been so delighted with how smartphone filmmaking have worked for us, that it's definitely something that it's going to be incorporated into whatever public engagement that they do from now on, because it's one of those things that it just makes it so accessible to people. They don't need to have the fancy equipment at home to create things like the ones you saw today. So it just opens up and makes it a little bit less scary as well. I think if in a lot of the programs that would have done pre-COVID, if we were to give people like the fancy DSLR equipment, people would be going like, oh, a bit scared, to even touch it and to use it. Whereas there's something about smartphone that it's just less scary to hold one because we're so used to it.
Definitely.
So I think it depends on the projects. I think if it's one of those that it's about breaking those barriers, bringing people into the technology, I would be like 100% yes, smartphone filmmaking all the way. But I think it will depend on the project nature. But absolutely, we're not letting smartphone filmmaking go.
Fantastic. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. We'd love for you to stick them in the chat or to ask them in person. So
hi, can I jump in there?
Go right ahead.
Hi, Laura. I've dabbled with making programs a very, very long time ago in a previous life type of thing. I have messed around with iMovie a little bit, but I find it too basic because it was what's the one that they made Lord of the Rings and stuff with? Is what I was learning.
Pro or Avid or Premiere?
Yeah, Premiere. So I was more au fait with that. So I find iMovie a bit too basic. Obviously, I don't have a lot of money because I'm stuck at home and stuff. What's the next step up?
Yeah, I would say the next step up would be the likes of Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro or Avid, which are not cheap. I would say I don't think there is anything in between. If anyone in the chat here, in the room here knows, I'm not familiar with anything in between. I think it's either the entry level ones like iMovie, KineMaster, VN, or you go to the paid and expensive ones if you want to get much more out of the editing.
Yeah, I'm used to a bit more freedom than iMovie gives you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would say I think KineMaster is only available on smartphones, which again, I don't like editing on a smartphone, although I love smartphone filmmaking. I like to sit on a computer and have like a bigger screen. Someone said InShot. Okay, I've never used InShot, so maybe.
InShot. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tassim.
I'll look for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And it was enjoyable, especially the ocean one. That was fascinating.
Thanks,
fantastic. I think, Liz, do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I'm really curious. Thanks, Laura. That was brilliant. Really, really interesting to see the variety across TikTok, YouTube, and the others. What I'm curious about really is in terms of the films made on iPad versus films made on smartphone. I'm just about to indulge myself in some tech, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way. Like you, I prefer to edit on a bigger screen and on a laptop. But I'm just wondering, what are the variables, or why do some people choose iPad and some people choose smartphones?
Yeah, well, we would have used only iPads in our programs, mostly when we're working with kids. In case they break it, it doesn't hurt us. More as we have, the Nerve Center has a lot of iPads, so it's one of those that if they break one iPad, we have like 20 others and we can buy more. So that would be our only preference for iPads. I wouldn't use iPads a lot for filmmaking, and the reason being is their camera, I don't know if you've noticed, but the framing, whatever you see on the screen whenever you're filming, it's not the same that it's actually captured. It's generally, you see more wide, and then whatever is captured is actually not as wide. So when I started using iPad for filming, I used to get really frustrated because I had a very clear composition in my head, and I was like, oh great, the tree is here and the house is there, yes, everything is fine. And then whenever I saw in the editing room, I was like, well, why is only half of the house and within the frame? So yeah, I would say again, it all goes back to the end result. Are you looking for something that is going to look very impressive and you're going to be used, for example, for fundraising? You're going to be using it to submit to film festivals? Because with a lot of our projects, our focus is more on the engagement and the skills learning, sort of like whatever they produce, it's almost like an add-on. If they make something that it's amazing for us, like, oh great, we hit gold. Sure. But for us, it's the process is much more important than the product. And that would determine what technology we would be choosing, if it would be an iPad, if it would be using a DSLR or a smartphone. I think, again, it depends on which smartphone you have, because of course, if you have like a shitty £100 phone, which I had before I got an iPhone, I would say absolutely not, because the camera quality is going to be appalling. So go. No,
I use a Google Pixel, Laura, which I find fantastic, and the film quality from it is superb. And it's more to do with learning how to edit better and deciding what programs to use, like the previous person who was asking about that. So shooting on a Google Pixel phone and then transferring it onto an Apple computer is what I'm doing at the moment. So
okay, so if that's the case, yes, I would say if you're not shooting indoors, if you're shooting outdoors, the iPad camera will be good enough. And then it will make your workflow much easier, because you can just airdrop things from an iPad into your Mac computer. Whereas, as you said, if you're shooting with your Google phone, then we need to get, maybe goes to your cloud, and you have to get from your cloud into your computer, and it adds a little bit more kind of like, more to your workflow. Best thing would be, why don't you experiment with both? Like go out for a day with both and shoot with both, and then see the camera quality. Sure. Which one is gonna, do you think it's gonna work best for your project? But as I said, it all depends sort of like what the end, what's your aim with the project? Is it just a document?
I guess they are documentary pieces I'm working on at the moment, but I am thinking about festivals. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with editing software, iMovie, it's a very good entry level one, like to get started into, and once you learn one, you're kind of like, you're halfway with other ones as well, because it's a much smoother, except for Avid, because Avid is a different beast. But yeah, but generally, like, it is.
Premiere.
Yeah. Pardon?
I'm starting. I think it's called Premiere, the one I'm starting with.
Premiere. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a very good one. It's as we're Siobhan and I were saying earlier, that it is sort of like the industry sort of like standard. So
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, fantastic. Does anyone else have any questions that they're hoping to get answered? Well, I think you were very thorough in your presentation, Lara. It was great to hear all about the projects you've been working on. And I've got some traffic outside my flat, so I apologize if it's a bit loud. But yes, thank you very much for your presentation, and all the resources you posted were fantastic, and I know I'll be looking into them.
Just seen some things came up here.
Yeah, I've just seen something in the...
Oh God, okay. There was a private question that came up here. I want to ask about where you think the future of smartphone filmmaking is going. Do you think that as the technology improves, there will be a move away from traditional filmmaking across the industry? I don't think there is a move away. I think it's just another way of making films. It is becoming more mainstream. You have big directors actually going the smartphone filmmaking route and making films entirely shot on phones. I don't think one thing will replace the other. I think what's happening is it's opening up to more people to get into filmmaking, because now you don't need the fancy and expensive equipment to even get started. So and you have not only film festivals dedicated to smartphone filmmaking, but you also have traditional film festivals which are accepting films entirely shot on smartphones. So I think it's just going to be just sort of like another way of making films. I don't think it will replace, and we will never work with big bulky cameras, because we said the same thing about photography. Whenever the smartphones started taking like really, really good photographs, we're like, oh my God, this is the death of DSLR cameras, and it hasn't been. There is a market for that, and there is an argument for using DSLR over a smartphone when you're working on a photography project. So I think it's just making it more accessible to people who perhaps would have never ever make a film or would never get started in the film industry because of accessibility to equipment. Yeah, and someone, DaVinci, yeah, that's a good free editing software as well. I think it only works with PC computers. I'm not sure if it works with Mac. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very good entry level one as well. And I said VN and KineMaster are two really good apps if you want to try to edit on your phone, and just give it a go and see. As I said, personally, I don't like editing on a phone at all. I get really frustrated with moving things around. But I'm much more like a computer editor person. But it's great if you're doing just like a very quick post for something, that you're shooting, and you just want like a very quick 30-second clip or 1-minute clip. Yes, it's much easier just to do it on your phone straight away rather than airdropping it into a computer and then back again. So it just, it does help the workflow. Again, all depends on the project, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and where is it going. So but DaVinci is a good one too.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've ended on a good note. So thank you all for coming along, and thank you, Laura. It's been fantastic having you speak, and really interesting. I'm going to have to start making a smartphone film after this. You really inspired me. Just to promote her a bit more, we have a whole bunch of film screenings online, and if you're in Kerry at the end of the week, we have some in-person events and screenings taking place. So I would really recommend for anyone that's interested to have a look on our website. It's been great so far, and we still have a few more days of the festival left, and would love to have you all participate. Laura, I think you shared your social media, and we'll have that up on our Instagram and website as well for all of you to take a look at. We have our festival website in the chat as well if you want to take a look. But thank you all so much. It's been really great learning from you, Laura, and seeing all your faces and hearing your questions. And
thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for wasting your lunch hour on me. So
not a waste at all.